And there's a strong pushback in Israel against the United States. It's quite extraordinary, actually, to have senior ministers in the government there who are openly contemptuous of the United States, their biggest supporter. For example, the Minister for National Security, obviously a very important portfolio, he has tweeted that Hamas loves Biden, with a little heart as an emoji. Very provocative. All because the US has said we're pausing one delivery of bombs. Now, if you look at President Biden, clearly he's got to the point now where he's very frustrated. He talks about civilians have been killed in Gaza as a consequence of the bombs they've been sending. And he actually says that the way that Israel goes after population centres, and he has also talked about in the past about Israel's bombing of Gaza is indiscriminate. Now, indiscriminate bombing of a densely populated area with a lot of civilians is pretty well fitting the definition of a war crime. So you've got the President of the United States essentially suggesting that Israel could be committing war crimes. So I've never seen a rift like this where I think that this White House has had enough.
Okay, it's interesting, isn't it? So from the Israelis' perspective, how are those Israeli ministers responding there to President Biden's decision to stop that shipment of munitions?
Well, a lot of hostility. And only recently, the Minister for Finance, Bezalel Smotrich, basically accused President Biden of engaging in an anti-Semitic lie. Now, again, it's pretty red-hot rhetoric to accuse Joe Biden, the strongest supporter of Israel, has been for years and years as a public figure in the Congress, to accuse him of anti-Semitism. Now, it fits in with, undoubtedly there is anti-Semitism and a rise of it, but also it's clear that that term, that the way it's being thrown around, the accusation of anti-Semitism is clearly being used against anybody who wants any legitimate criticism of Israel, or to have Joe Biden and anti-Semitism in the same sentence. It's pretty red hot. And yet Benjamin Netanyahu's doing nothing about these ministers who are saying Hamas loves Biden. So it's very provocative. Benjamin Netanyahu's doing nothing. It just shows you how extreme, far right and extreme, this current Israeli government is.
And what about those in Rafah? What are the reports that you're receiving about those civilians there?
Well, look, things are, really bad there. Things are getting worse as well. There was a woman in Rafah sent out an email to a contact of mine recently or overnight saying, I think the end is approaching quickly. The situation is taking a dangerous turn with the bombing and the advance of the vehicles in Rafah. Heavy indiscriminate bombing everywhere. Continuous shooting from aircraft. We only say, oh Lord, be with us, not against us. So it's clearly now the attacks on Rafah are well and truly underway. Everybody was waiting, the media was waiting for the big ground invasion of Rafah. I don't think that will happen. I don't think from the Israeli point of view they need to do that. They're already bombing and attacking so much of Rafah in the eastern parts that they don't need to do a ground invasion. The attack on Rafah has already begun.
We know, of course, that there is a UN vote tonight on whether or not Palestine should be adopted as part of its body there. The Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, has spoken and said that, negotiations about this UN vote to adopt Palestine as part of its body is underway, and Australia's position has not yet been finalised. Where do you expect Australia to land here, to abstain, a yes or a no? And what about the other members of the UN?
Well, at the moment, the Foreign Minister, the Prime Minister and key figures in the Labor Party are literally at this moment on the phone trying to work out. They're waiting to see the final text. They're caught on one hand between wanting to recognise the state of Palestine. There's a strong push for that in the Labor Party. But on the other hand, they're getting opposition, including from within the Labor Party, to say the timing, if you recognise it now, the state of Israel before the United Nations, it will be rewarding the atrocities Hamas committed on October 7. And it will be seen that if you commit these atrocities, you end up with a reward. So that's the argument. And I don't think that Penny Wong and Anthony Albanese will decide until the very last moment that final wording of the text comes through. I think they'll either abstain or support it.
Okay. And the other members of the UN?
Look, most of them support it. clearly. It will have to go through to the Security Council, though. Of course, America will probably veto it, although you don't know, with Israel's attacks now on the United States, the abuse of President Biden, you just don't know whether he might say enough is enough, the relationship has to change.